all the ways to start an episode, and I start it like this. I kind of got off to a little bit of a wrong start, or maybe, not a wrong start, a rough start when I started season 3 of the Central Name podcast, because I'd taken a break all summer, and so this is the 12 episodes into the Central Name podcast season 3, and I feel like I've gotten better and gotten and yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I thought it'd be cool just to start every episode of this season with a joke. But sometimes that's not the best thing, because then people think about the joke the entire time, and they're forgetting about the other things that I'm saying. So I may transition away from that slowly. I don't know, and I really feel bad about some of the episodes, because some of the I don't know. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. For this episode, I want to be talking about church. And, so hi, my name is NCR, and I'm the host of the Sunshine Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so excited to have you here, and I encourage you to listen to the end. And I hope it's something that you're going to love and enjoy. And this is episode 12, last episode for the year, and then I'll come back with 12 more episodes for next year, because, I do, if you don't know this, I do 12 episodes before the new year and 12 episodes after the new year, and approximately 24 episodes per season. And I intentionally do the Sunshine Podcast during the fall and winter months to shine some light into your life during the darker part of the year. And so I recently did a YouTube video on my personal channel, Non-Resistant Really, about the power of fasting. And since then, which that was last week, I started taking notes to maybe do a powerful series about why things like confession, prayer, and baptism are powerful. And so once again, I just want to say that thinking is powerful. So please think about what you hear from me here at the Sun Shining. And if you're a good Christian, you might go to your Bible to see if the things that I say are accurate. And a lot of the times, this is a Christian podcast, and my audience, maybe Christian young people or Christian young adults. I don't necessarily. This is not necessarily a Bible study. I just like to share reflections and thoughts on my podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about the church, and maybe there's various different things I'm going to be covering in this episode. And as I was preparing notes and stuff for this episode, preparing for this episode. Did I already say this? First of all, I was first thinking to do an episode about Christmas, but I finally decided to settle on the topic of church. But just today, as I was reflecting for this episode, I've just been doing a couple hours of just reflecting and thinking about it, and looking at different blog posts and doing a little bit of research for this episode. And so various different things we'll cover this episode, and maybe we'll talk about how about why the church is powerful, or how it can be powerful, as well as many other topics in this episode. So buckle up your seatbelts and let's hit the road. First off, I just want to talk about church preferences some, because that's a thing. Different people have different preferences, and there's many different factors and reasons why a person may choose to go to this church rather than that church. So I don't know what your personal church preferences are. I just want to share a few minds with you. So I think, and in no particular order here, I'm just going to go through them. And so one reason why I would not want to go to your church is if your church has less than 1,000 members. I don't know about you, but I personally like churches that are large. I think another reason I would not want to attend your church is if your church did not have a website or social media profiles, or an amazing team of people to manage, like the social media, like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that. And because I love that kind of thing. And I think a church, because I want to be able to find information about your church before I attend your church, right? So definitely that's something that's a factor in why I would attend a certain church or not. If your church does not have a worship team, it's probably not a church I'd want to attend. Because that's actually, worship is actually a fairly large factor in why people decide to go to certain churches. It's one of the larger factors, and there's many I could do a whole other episode about worship. In fact, I actually did. The third episode of this season, fourth episode, was about worship, but there's many other aspects of worship, and I actually contributed to a book about worship coming out on the 12th of this month. So be sure to check that out. But So going on a complete side tangent here, but definitely worship. Yeah, it looks different. Like sometimes there's more upbeat songs, more drawn out, couple hour. Like some churches have a couple hour worship experience. Some churches just have like two or three upbeat worship songs. And so yeah, but the big thing for me though is worship team, because I don't like to attend small churches that just have like one person playing the piano. Like that's dull and boring. Like I'm just like, I like to attend churches that have a worship team. And then there's other, but yeah, there's many other ways worship could look. I wouldn't want to go to your church if I couldn't find a place to park at your church. I wouldn't want to attend your church if it doesn't have, good children and youth ministries. Because, while I'm not a parent myself, those things are very important, and who does, like, it's very encouraging for me just to see young people who are being just, poured into and ministered to weekly. If your church doesn't have, like similar to that worship leader, or worship team. If your if your church doesn't have a pastoral team, like a team of pastors, like a senior pastor and other pastors, like multiple pastors, I wouldn't want to attend it, because and if your church doesn't have multiple locations, I wouldn't want to attend your church if your pastor wasn't a best-selling author. But then again, depending on, and similar to the other things I was saying, like, um, well, I mean, this is not related to the best-selling author, but I wouldn't want to attend your church if it was like a cult kind of. Yeah, if your church believed that it was like the only church. If your church, well, see, I know, like going back on the other thing, like I said, mega church. Like I wouldn't want to attend your church if it thought it. Well, and I don't think churches really think this, but like if they kind of think that they are the church, and that they're kind of cultish kind of thing, right? And they want to, and they like. But I do like large churches. But yeah, no, I wouldn't want to. Yeah, I think pastors should be best-selling authors. I think, but motivational, inspirational, in general. If I don't like your pastor, but it's hard. I mean, I like most everyone, but okay. And then if your worship team doesn't write original songs, um, cause well, original upbeat songs as well, um, cause I love upbeat worship songs. But actually, more than original songs though, if your church doesn't have like a Spotify account, like either like a personal account and playlists on Spotify, as well as if your church doesn't release, your church worship team doesn't release their music to like Spotify and YouTube. So besides the church having its own, a YouTube channel, like the worship team needs their own YouTube channel to share worship videos, and their versions of popular worship songs. Because there's this one song that I like. I like the way my particular church sings it. But the way they sing it almost makes me think it's a Hillsong Young and Free song, except it's not. It's like I can't find a good version of that song to listen to. So if your church has amazing worship, I mean, release it to the world on Spotify. And so that's why a lot of my favorite churches do. Um, but well, the one that I actually like currently doesn't do that. The one I don't want to name any names here. Um, but that's just another factor. So yeah, that's got to, and I love creative churches. Like if your church isn't creative, um, if your church is just, I love, but churches are, if your church isn't willing to grow, because I like I like churches that, I mean, kind of are growing. They have like a nice large community already, but then also that are growing. And I mean, honestly, every church can't be large, and small churches are amazing as well. But I don't know. Since I don't have an actual guest for this episode, I want to ask you, my listener, a few questions. And one question that I think I'll ask right now is, why do you go to the church you go to? What are some reasons, is it a small church? And what are some characteristics of the church you go to? Is it a small church? Is it a large church? Um, yeah. And maybe share your answers and your thoughts about church with me on Instagram. But throughout the episode, I'll maybe be asking more questions about church. But I did have one guest that I did ask a few church questions. So I want to share that clip with you right now, and then I'll get back to you after that and yeah, share some more thoughts about the church.
What church do you go to?
My wife and I are part of Transformation Church. So Transformation Church from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We are TC Nation. That is our home church.
And what are some reasons you go to the church that you go to?
For me, and for us, is the pastor is able to articulate things from the Bible that maybe don't get discussed. I grew up in church my whole life, and there was stuff that our pastor used to just like glaze right over and not talk about. And the Pastor Michael Todd at Transformation Church, he just brings the word to life in a way that it impacts to have an understanding of it. And that's why we go to Transformation Church.
Is it kind of a non-denominational church?
Yes.
So how far away from you is that church?
So that church from us is about 9 hours away. So we do it all virtually.
No, virtually. What are some reasons you wouldn't want to attend a church?
So the reasons why I wouldn't want to attend a church is the reasons why I left the church that I grew up in. And that's because I saw people in the church that were the leaders of the church who were saying that they were hearing from God, and they were making moves for the money, or they were doing things because a great example was my youth pastor at the time. He was this man of God. He was my mentor, and he got a job offer to be the executive pastor, and he said he wasn't going to take it. And then the very next day he took it. And I don't know if you've ever been in a place where the Holy Spirit was there and you just feel it. It's almost like electricity, but it was almost as if the electricity got sucked out of the room. You could just feel that like the Holy Spirit wasn't there in that time, because our leader had actually lied straight to us. And that is what, and I understand that it's this thing where we're all humans, we all make mistakes. But if you're going to be in a church, and some reasons why people don't want to go to church is either A, they don't want to go there and just get bashed to death and talked about how they're sinners and how they're going to hell. Like, you got to be able to go to a church that shows grace too and tells the truth. You don't want to go to a place that everything is peace and love and happiness, because then you're sparing them the fact that they are sinners that need grace. So that is a big reason why I left, was that there wasn't enough truth and there was no grace. So I just completely left the church.
And then what are maybe like the top 3 reasons or that you attend, like the church that you attend?
So the top 3 reasons is just, number one, going back to what I was talking about earlier, was the lead pastor is he is able to hear from God in a way and articulate his words in a way that help bring stories to life. Stories we've heard before, but just brought to life in a way that helps me, my wife, and my son understand it as individuals. The second reason is that there's grace for the sinner and there's truth. So it's this thing where if you're a sinner, yeah, we understand that you've made some mistakes, but there's also the truth that you're going to die and go to hell if you don't get saved. But it's also not getting pushed onto every single person every single minute of the service. And number 3 is just the community that's there. It's a community that loves first, instead of just trying to add another person to the congregation.
I have got to say, his reasons are a lot better than mine's. This is where I usually do some Zoom meetings for my podcast, and usually I have the background blurred, so you can't see like the bed and stuff there, or the door, or the chair there. It's kind of blurred, so you can't really tell what it is back there. But there's no, like, when I'm just recording with my camera, there's no like way to blur it. So anyways, I shared that list of kind of, why I wouldn't want to attend your church kind of thing. And or kind of characteristics of a church that I would want to attend. But I do need to share some of my, I guess, personal story with churches. Is that honestly, growing up as a family, we don't go to church. Yeah. So that's kind of it. That's my personal story. We don't go to church. We're not really going to, attend any church, and we've never been members of any church. I mean, we have attended, a few different churches, but there's a lot of churches out there. And so, looking into the future, like I, as a Christian, I am a Christian, and I don't ever see myself committing to one single church. Yeah, I don't. And so much for, my church preference thing. And, and I've only been to very few churches, and there's a lot of churches out there, like, there's over 2,000 some mega churches in the United States or in North America. And, some of them, I've only kind of been to like one, or I've attended a few online, so I've, witnessed a few, saw a few, but, and they look cool, they're awesome. Their services are amazing. They have amazing leaders, but some of them just, I don't know, they're great. Where was I going with that? It's not possible to attend every one of them. See, that's the thing. And they're cool. I was just reading a blog post just before I recorded this, about Saddleback Church in California. About how it's a large church, and it has, like, ice cream shop, restaurants, and various other things. And, churches, I've never been to I've never personally attended a church that large, and some churches like that, like, they have a lot of visitors that come to them. If I ever did go to a church like that, it'd just be as a visitor, like one time, and they have around 25,000 people a week or more. Like some churches, mega churches have 50,000 attendees every week or whatever coming through. And like, whoa, unbelievably large. And, it's not like, everyone can go to those churches. And, but they are cool. The things they do, the music they create, the messages, their leaders, everything is cool the way they do the programs. But I could never, or I don't know, I'm young, and so maybe that's why, but I don't see myself plugging in at a church and becoming a member of a church and attending one particular church for the next 20, 30 years, or the rest of my life, basically. I just don't see that happening. But, and there's a lot of different people, because, as Christians, there's a lot of people who do attend church and who do get plugged into a church. And, like, churches aren't a bad thing. And churches are good, and I want to, my future, I see myself working, I don't know, if it'd be one particular church I work at for the rest of my life, because I like working for the church. Like, I currently are at a Christian ministry, and besides creating my own church, maybe I want to be a church creator, I don't know, because I have my own ministry that I created, the Sun Shining, and maybe I want to create a church called, like, the Sun Shining Church, or maybe another name for it, I don't know. But, I'm a Christian, and so besides not really attending a church, it will be a part of my life, and working for a Christian ministry or something will be a part of my life. And maybe, I either see myself, like I said, either starting my own church or maybe working or something, but never really attending as a member of a certain church for how many years? A church that I really like, I wasn't naming names earlier, but a church that I really like is the Project Church in Edmonton. And I attend that online, except it's a church for young people. So I'll maybe attend it for the next few years. I don't know. And I love it. And I love that they're reaching the young people of Edmonton. But there's some churches that, well, like, I'm young right now, but like I said, I read a blog post, and it was about an older person. So I know, depending on your age, if you attend a church that has young people, you might feel like an old person. And certain churches, like, that's the thing, like, there's different age, ages, and so it is interesting to think, and I'll definitely have to talk on this in the future about just, God, what church, I'm currently attending, or think of it like 10 years, like I said, that, what church I'll just be a part of, kind of, and loving. Because I do follow, slightly follow various churches online. Like, I think everyone, maybe not everyone does to a certain extent, but I do follow, like, the mega churches to it, like a little bit online, like Upper Room and Bethel and Elevation and Hillsong, and see bits of the message, because he what's the leader of Elevation Church, Stephen Furlick, he's a very, he's a best-selling author, and he's, I follow him on TikTok, and so I see some of his messages and stuff, and these, that's what I love with the big churches. Another thing that I need to say here is that I could, I think there's a verse in the Bible for this. I might have to look this up, but I don't like the idea of getting all my input from one Christian leader. I love, surrounding myself with Christian leaders, getting input from, Christian leaders, lots of different Christian leaders. And so, like I was saying, how, a good big church has, like a team of pastors, senior pastors, junior pastors, one of them, pastoral team or whatever. But not just that, though. I like to get input from different churches. I think that's just me. I don't know if that's just a characteristic of just me or if multiple people do. And it is interesting how, I can't comprehend, plugging myself in and really being a member of, a small church, because that's just not me. Because, I have many friends who attend small churches, and they like their small church, and they plug themselves in, and they serve at their small church, and they love their small church, and that's awesome. But for me, I like a little bit larger churches that have 500 to 1,000 or over members, and that's just me. But and then I like to just kind of attend it, but I would like, so church membership and serving at church is very interesting, because I like to serve and work and volunteer, but so it's interesting. I guess it's just also, maybe, and an interesting time for me to even be doing, there's many different topics, as a Christian writer and podcaster and leader, that I'm just I have to wait till I'm 40 or 50 to write or talk about these things. And maybe church is one of those things that I need to wait, which it's fine for me to talk about it now. I'm sharing whatever my thoughts and opinions and blah, blah, blah about it right now. But I need to wait until I'm, 50 or 60 just to know what it's like then. But currently, young person are not really, I guess currently I do work at Alasso Ranch, and Alasso Ranch is owned by Fellowship Church. And I love that. I love Fellowship Church. It's a beautiful, large church. It's actually, I did a little bit of research to this, and I need to do more because there's probably more blog posts. But I just read one blog post about the 10, or was it the 10 largest churches in Dallas? And Fellowship Church was the second largest, I think, and then Gateway was a little bit larger and has been around for more years. But where was I going with that? So, it's a nice large church, and I love Fellowship Church. I love what they do, and I love, working for Alasso Ranch. I love to get, maybe plugged in a little bit more with the church, but I would never want to be, I think, a member for their, church membership, it's almost like a cult, in my opinion. And there's another, my family, we also attend a small, we don't attend a church. We occasionally, we stopped going there. But we were occasionally going to a small Seventh-day Adventist church. And just, they we were never members of it, and it is, I don't know what to think about church membership, never being, and that's a very interesting thing, never being a part of a church membership, and I'm just like, I never ever, I feel like, me personally, my best work lies outside the church, kind of. And I never want to be a member to a specific church, like let's name some mega churches, like Elevation or Hillsong or what's another big one that I like? Or Hope City, which you probably never heard of Hope City because it's not really a mega church. It's not really that big. Okay, I just named it. But I want to, I would, and some churches, because there's, how many churches? There's like over, 2,000 some mega churches in North America, as well as, I did some research, over 300 some thousand churches, I think, or more than that, definitely more than that. I'm just like, it's not possible for me to ever know about every single, get familiar with and kind of fall in love with and, attend every single church or even visit every single church once in my life. And there's just a few big ones that I like. But another factor that it affects church, I guess, attendance, is location and where the church is located. Let me just add right here, I don't know how I'm going to edit this and cut this up, but I wouldn't want to attend your church if it's a long ways away from me. But, it's interesting how my guest, and I don't know how many people do this across North America, but he attended, he attends church virtually. He tunes into their live stream virtually, and I'm like, cool. I don't know how many people do that as their main church service. That's interesting. Because I don't, after, 2020 and COVID hit, like everything, they moved, church services online and stuff for a few weeks. I'm just like, I still like I tune into the project service online, but I also attend an in-person church here. I mean, and then also, I'm not really, like, I want church to be part of my life. Church is important, and as an individual, we're weak, but there's strength in numbers, and so there's strength. Church is important. Church is good. But I'm just like, I don't know that I would ever want to. It's interesting. Okay. What I was trying to say is, I don't think I'd ever want to attend a church virtually, like just 100% of the time, and that's it. I want to, and we can both agree that Jesus Christ is powerful, right? The church is the body of Jesus Christ. We are called to love like he loved, serve like he served, share like he shared. We are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. That, my friend, is why the church is so powerful. Or that's why the church can be powerful. But I think the church is failing to do the things that we are called to do. Well, I can't think of anything else too much to say, so I'm going to be closing up the episode soon, or closing out the episode soon. But, like I opened with, I do want to help you think, and so I just have some questions just to share with you about church, and I would love to hear your response. So I'll just share these questions, and then so what church do you go to and why? What are some reasons you would not attend a church? Top 3 characteristics of the church you go to, or top 3 characteristics you feel a church should have. And then also, something that I said yesterday when I was recording is that I don't feel like the church is doing what it was called to do. But, that depends. There are some good churches and there's some bad churches. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Do you serve at your church? When you hear the word church, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What denomination do you consider yourself to be a part of, if any? And what are some thoughts you have about denominations? how much, as an individual, how much research, have you done about the church? Are you just an average person, working person that doesn't, hasn't gone to like a Bible college to learn about church? Or have you gone to Bible college and learned a little bit about church and church denominations and different doctrines and beliefs? I don't know. That's just kind of a random question that's maybe not really relevant or practical to the everyday person. But okay, another question is, what is something you get at church? Is it community? Is it biblical teaching? Why do you, and similar to kind of the question I asked before, why do you go to the church that you go to? And yeah, and so, and just, like I said, thinking about church. I want to help you think about church in this episode. And there's nothing really more that I can say about church. Yeah. So I just want to share, verse of the week and song of the week. So a verse for the week is Romans 12, verse 5. So we, being many members, are one body in Christ, and everyone members one of another. That's something to think about, because, there's a lot of, in certain places, and, there's a lot of division within the church. And we just need to remember that we're all, one body in Christ. And there are some, I guess I didn't end up touching on some of them in this episode, but there are some important beliefs that, like about God that unite the church, and is what makes the Christian church, Christian. And yeah, and so just key thing to remember, like, is just to just to be loving. And I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm not someone who ever is like very like argumentative and I don't like to cause division or create division or be the cause of division or ever be divided with somebody. I'm always very, yeah. Okay, now the song for the week is "Build Your Kingdom Here" by Rin Collective. And so I don't think I shared too many songs by Rin Collective on my podcast. They are my favorite worship group. If you have been a Christian for a while, you may have heard this song. If not, go listen to it now. If you're new to Christianity, I'd love to connect with you and then also, about this song. I think this song could kind of be made a prayer of yours. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the end. Be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you get podcasts or here on YouTube.